Hello, it's the Great Canadian Bagel here coming to you with another Alberta provincial election update. So, before I get into the video, I would just like to make an announcement here. I've been running a poll the last little bit. That's querying Canadian political preferences and vote intentions and stuff like that. I'm going to have it in the pinned comment under this video, as well as a link to the tweet on Twitter where I'm also have the poll listed. If you want to have any comments, comment on the pinned comment or on Twitter. Twitter's preferred because it's going to be easier for me, but you can do it on the pinned comment too if you want. But I would enjoy if you could fill it out and or pass it along to everybody else that you know who might be interested in filling out a survey. With that, though, let's get into the main video. So, really not too much is happening per se. And really, we shouldn't be surprised. Alberta's election here is really coming down to a handful of ridings around Calgary's core and around Edmonton. The Edmonton suburbs, if you will, and the outer core of Calgary. That's where the election is. We discussed this last week. I'm not going to really rehash that. So how has the election been going so far? We're about a week into it. What really has happened? Well, if we see here, this is the PC scenario. So this is the one where basically, this is my best case scenario for the UCP. We can just call it that way. And they've picked up a seat in Edmonton. They lost two seats in Edmonton. They lost a seat in Calgary. Not a big deal. The vote shares changed, but the vote shares changed not necessarily because the UCP is doing worse. It's down about 1%. Bring this up over here and it'll be a bit easier to see. They're down about 1%. NDP are up about 1%. That's not because there's movement going on right now. That's just the NDP now have a full slate of candidates, as do the UCP. There were several ridings, such as Fort McMurray, Lac La Biche, this one here, that had no opposition before. It was just a single UCP candidate. Now there's an NDP. Now there's some third parties. So as those fill in, the UCP and NDP vote shares are going to change. From this point, they're probably going to drop a little bit going into next week. Just prior to this video being recorded, I didn't have really time to change this, but I don't think it would really matter that much. The Wild Rose Coalition just nominated 53 candidates. Not really sure how I want to handle that one, because the comment below, actually, if you have thoughts on this. I haven't really thought too much into it, because again, it literally just happened before recording, so I'm not really going to jigger everything to add that in. But the gist of that is, I'm not actually should I consider that what the Wild Rose Party is? I don't know. We'll consider this. That will be thought. In the meantime, as you get more of these candidates nominated up until about May 11th, these numbers are going to change. And I think from here, we're probably going to see the NDP and the UCP decline a little bit. I don't think it's going to go much more, though. Because again, if we look here, we're not really looking at too much in the third parties. And if we even go back before I was considering candidates, it still wasn't that much. Back here in April 2nd, what is this, like 8%? Not much. Even in my worst case scenario for the UCP, it's still about 8%. We're really not looking at much in the way of third party. It exists, and I don't think we can write it off or ignore it, and it might impact the actual election results. But we're not looking at a lot of votes here. So we're going to be looking at and expecting over this next week that this numbers decline, popular vote-wise. Seats are probably going to stay roughly the same, plus or minus a couple seats. Some vibrations will probably happen, if nothing else. We go to my other scenario here. This is the worst case scenario for the UCP, or best case for the NDP, if you prefer that. And again, I'll be clear, this is best/worst as in what my model forecasts with my assumptions. I'm sure if you want to, at home, you can be like, what if the NDP wins, what are the name of these seats? Calgary Bedmonton, Calgary Edgemont, Calgary North, etc., etc. Like, you could pick all these ridings that are somewhat close, like here in this one, in Slave Lake. And it's like, what happens then? You could do that, and I won't discredit that. That is a perfectly valid thing to do. But what my model is attempting to do is basically saying what party is the most likely to win this riding. Is it guaranteed? No, I get seat projections wrong. Everyone gets seat projections wrong. But what the important thing to see with this election is it's not just myself, it's pretty much everyone running a big model that I'm aware of is pretty much the same ballpark. You look at 338 Canada right now, and it's pretty much the same as with Too Close to Call. In fact, actually, I'll just bring up 338 and Too Close to Call for you so you can even compare them. So here we go. This is 338, right? 50 to 37. This is very close. This is very similar to this scenario. There's a seat difference. He has it within 2 points. I have 3. Again, not too much. Let's get Too Close to Call here. Okay. Here. Oh, he actually is a bit closer now. Last time I looked at it was a bit further, but I mean, stuff updates. That's what it is. But he still has UCP ahead about 2 points and about 5 seats. So when you're talking about plus or minus 5 seats right now in this projection, it's not that much. I can even point at 5 seats on this map that are actually fairly close. And you could easily win them. So there's not much. Not much movement, and we shouldn't expect much movement. That doesn't mean nothing is happening, though. It just means, as I think a lot of people have come to the conclusion recently, the election didn't start on May 1st. And it was never starting on May 1st. The election has really been going on since Smith was elected. So what is that, like October 7th or something like that? So we're at month 8. That's basically what it is. There isn't really the case there's many persuadable voters left. Basically, everybody has their preference at this point. Now, I'm not going to say that there's no people the NDP or the UCP could swing. There are obviously some. But at this point, it seems more of the case, can they actually get voters to go out and vote? At this point, that really seems to be the only thing left in the election. The polling is pretty consistent on this. The UCP and the NDP really haven't changed their relative vote shares since February. They're about the same in every poll. Plus or minus like 1 or 2, but not much. There's not really seemingly any major trends in the polls. And if those of you at home who might be confused how even in this worst case scenario for the UCP, I can go from about a tie in the polls to the UCP slightly winning. It's because my model tries to forecast polling error and tries to correct for it. And historically, the NDP overperforms in polling and the UCP underperforms in polling. Well, conservatives in general in Canada, but I try to calibrate it specifically to the province we're looking at. And that's really the difference between this scenario and this scenario. This scenario, I'm using the Progressive Conservative Party pre-2019. And in this scenario, I'm using the Wild Rose Party pre-2019. And what I mean by that is, I mean their historical performance, their historical trends in polling and actual election results. So that's where we are. That's where the election is. And I could talk to you about all the different little things that are happening, the promises being made, the net results of them. But to be honest, like, I could fill up this whole video for 40 minutes. I could. I'm not going to. I'm going to keep this one relatively brief today because there's, as much as I would love to talk about and pad my videos' run lengths, there's nothing going on right now. You have the same kind of cheap shots you've been having the entire campaign, back and forth. You have the NDP continuing their strategy where they're basically trying to just demoralize voters because they can't really win a regular election. And that's not a diss at the NDP. That's their shot at winning the election. There's no reason to... It could be distasteful for you, but I see no reason to denigrate them using their only strategy available, other than it might be distasteful. But when we're talking about how you actually win elections and what you actually do, I don't really feel like I'm in a position to say that, no, how dare you do the thing that is the only thing you can do to win. It's a different type of video. It's a different series if you want to discuss what is actually good or appropriate. I could go into all that, but I really won't. And I don't think there's really any much this week either. I'll probably have an update and just let you know next week as well where the seats are, where things are going. Maybe things will happen, but I think this next week is going to get burned out because of the wildfires in northern Alberta right now. And that was not intentionally a pun. But with wildfires in northern Alberta right now, I really don't think we're going to see too much in the realm of, at least from Smith, campaigning. At least traditional campaigning. She's probably going to be too busy managing that and doing the bare minimum campaigning stuff to really do anything big. I don't think we're going to see any big promises, and I don't think we're going to see anything interesting. And I think that's actually a good idea for Smith. Because one of the win conditions for this election, for her, is to show that she is able to actually govern effectively. If she can handle or at least control the wildfires just fine, at least adequately to the population, looks like she has it under control, then that's fine. She's won. Not necessarily the election, but that particular issue she's gained ground with. And expect the NDP to politicize it. And that's to be expected. It's an election, and as much as, again, it's distasteful to politicize things like this, that is just how it is. That's the reality of politics. During an election, everything is politicized. The NDP will be constantly critiquing everything Smith does vis-a-vis the wildfires. Rightly or wrongly, justly or unjustly. I don't think it's going to really matter, barring a massive screw-up. Even if Smith does screw up, if it's not massive, it's not going to matter. The reason for that is handling a crisis generally helps you regardless of what the crisis is and regardless of how you did it. As long as the voters perceive you as taking it seriously and taking serious actions, it generally helps you as the incumbent. Maybe in the future, we might find out, oh no, Smith really screwed the pooch. But that won't happen during the election. Honestly, the forest fires probably won't even be put out until after the election. If it's done in 22 days, that would be impressive to me. I'm not an expert on wildfires, but My understanding is getting them under control isn't a fast thing, especially when it's multiple and they're very big. It's not fast. So in the end, this next week is going to be basically a write-off. This last week was basically a write-off. And it's, again, as I stressed earlier, we should expect this. There's not much more to litigate here. Everyone knows who Smith is. Everyone knows who Notley is. Everyone knows who the UCP is. Everybody knows what the NDP is. All that's going to happen right now is some promises and some campaign maneuvers. And really the only promises I saw this week, I didn't really see much from the NDP. I was looking. If you can comment below if you saw anything big, let me know. But the only major promises I saw this week were some tax things, like cutting some the UCP wants to cut some taxes for people making under $60,000, and I have some like sign-on bonuses and something stuff like that for people migrating to Alberta. Like, I'm not going to here to debate policy. You can like or dislike those things. I think they'll probably help her, but I don't really think it's going to change the landscape much. The tax cut thing will probably drive out some turnout from the Quadrant 3 voter, the fiscally conservative, socially liberal type. It'll probably drive out some of their turnout, which will be good for Smith, because I think those are the people who are most likely to not vote. But I don't really think it's going to change the landscape. The NDP, I don't really think anything I've seen from them is going to change the landscape, though again, I haven't really seen too much. I've done my best looking, but I guess when everything you see news-wise is fed to you through an algorithm, sometimes you miss things. I'll do my best, try to do better next week, try to see more breadth of the NDP campaign literature, but I think the main thing at this point will be once all the candidates are out and once the platforms are like pretty nailed down, then we can probably start discussing some policy and stuff, and once the debates are happening, we could discuss that. But for now, there's not too much, so I'm going to wrap this up here, not dwell this longer than it needs to go, because again, not really anything happened this week. So just to summarize, some movement, but it's just fluctuations around the mean, and third parties are nominating candidates. That's the summary this week. So if you liked the video, by all means like, share, subscribe, comment below if you think I missed anything, comment if you just want to be nice, and leave me comments. Tell me that, I don't know, what your favorite flavor of ice cream is. You want to fill out that survey? You're welcome to, and I would really appreciate it. More sample is always better, especially if you want to share it to your friends or your family. Definitely welcome to do that. More sample is always better. It's anonymous, though you need a Google account to fill it out. That's how I'm controlling to stop people from botting it. Well, that, I bid you all adieu, and I will see you Thursday with something else.